Hello there, Common Wolf Ram here, and welcome to Worst to Best, our potential new series. First out, Tears of the Kingdom's dungeons, or more precisely, temples and one castle. So be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press the notification bell as we're going for 3000 likes, and let's get into my least favorite, the Water Temple. Talk about the disappointment after a spectacular build-up on the surface, ancient Zora waterworks, and low-gravity sky islands with still then Prince Sidon. The moment after you enter this gorgeous setting of a temple and learn that this is the source of Zora's domain's water supply, it sadly falls apart. Since this isn't really a temple, but a collection of floating sky islands with one interior chamber. And that one isn't exactly enjoyable with the battery-driven floating platforms, and all the water turbines are a little uninspired, since the entire activity with water here limits itself to draining it, and most often it's a combination of Ultra Hand and Recall. This temple doesn't even use Ascent, as 90% of it is in the highest section of the open sky. No other regular enemies but choose to get jelly for water and soldier constructs, which many you don't even have to fight, as with the low gravity and a little upgraded stamina, you can easily with your Zonai items, paraglider and bow and arrow get through this temple in 20 minutes. This dungeon may not have been the worst, but Moktarok sealed the deal for me, a true letdown of a temple and boss fight, when the trailer promised us an epic Yorg-like shark boss fight, but more on that one in a future video. In truth, the boss fight is the saving grace for Reconstruct Factory and the Spirit Temple, keeping it from the bottom spot on this list. They avoided the dubious honor by providing a solid final, but the path before that is not good. Much like the Water Temple, it suffers of the section before the dungeon being better than the actual dungeon, if you can even call it that, as we could have had the ultimate Rainforest Jungle Temple as the last regular hurdle prior to the dive to Ganondorf. Moving the 4 construct parts around with Ultra Hand is not ideal, and the lack of enemies in these closed linear sections of non-linear production chambers is disturbing. There are some fun elements to be found, but truth to be told, they are brief. Though the worst part comes as we start moving around the giant construct, on the way too long walk to the Spirit Temple. Here you face some enemies and one reused surface/depths boss. I'm gonna be honest, I thought all of this was the build-up to the actual Spirit Temple, but nope. The only thing you get here is a solid boxing match. I wish all of this happened in the same location, so the Spirit Temple. At least the dungeon reward, the Destructive Dagger, is sweet. Now over to the actual good dungeons, and with equally good bosses. Starting with the Wind Temple. The first temple indicated by Purah marked the return of the Legend of Zelda dungeons for many of us. Tulin is no doubt a worthy successor to Teba, and the ascent up to the Stormwind arc with him is absolutely spectacular. The Wind Temple is the same, and though it might not be as creative as Skyward Sword Sandship, it definitely has a better boss. I am not exaggerating when I'm saying that this has become my favorite opening Zelda dungeon, if you consider this one that way. A wind and ice temple in one, with icicles used with Ultra Hand to open doors, clever ascent and recall puzzles, and some good fights against soldier constructs and annoying Arakudas. What holds the Wind Temple back for me is that it is a little too short and easy, and the most divine beast-like temple out of all in this game. But that doesn't take away the fact that the descent down to this temple and exploration of it is pure fun, despite not being sure if it is Ganondorf, Colgera, or even soldier constructs, or all at once who are bombarding us while in the air. It is a quality first dungeon with an even better boss fight in Colgera, a worthy opener to the good temples and Tears of the Kingdom. So let's sky down to ground level for the only fully surface temple of the game, namely the Lightning Temple. What? It is the only proper traditional Zelda dungeon in the game. Yes and no at the same time. It is a solid pyramid that outshines the Garuda build-up preceding it, with a variety of enemies and some solid light and mirror puzzles. What drags this temple slightly down though is that after the brilliant opening section and first taste of the boss, the push turns into a crawl. The elevator needs power, and it is up to us to open the paths to charge up the 4 generators. No problem, as the first one is right behind the terminal and short-haired Riju is charged up. That leaves us with 3. And the Ultra Hand sections that follow are by all means good, but not top 2 dungeons good. And it isn't nearly as good as Ocarina of Time's Spirit Temple and Twilight Princess Arbiter's Grounds. With that said, creating a path removing and eliminating statues is not bad. It is just that I think this temple could have a little less frustrating and more precise Ultra Hand sections. What more is there to say? It feels like a pyramid, and that should also have been reflected in the name, as the traps and setting is taken straight out of ancient Egypt, something that I appreciate. After all, the Gerudo are clearly based on pharaonic Egypt and their Arabic and Turkish conquerors, only in this case with women in strong positions, though it wasn't that way in the past. I'll be honest, it would have been fun if this temple had both interior and exterior sections, but no matter what, it is better than the Wind Temple, and the boss fight against Queen Gibdo is one of the most challenging in the game. Still, I prefer Tears of the Kingdom's European Hyrule Castle over the Middle Eastern Lightning Temple. I love this only dungeon in Breath of the Wild, not counting DLC, and in Tears of the Kingdom it has gotten even better. Filled to the brim with secrets, clothing, including the champion leathers in the Sanctum, and powerful for fusing decayed weapons, along with powerful, non-decayed bows, and naturally shields, with the Hylian shield as the ultimate prize. Plus more layers than any of the temples found in the game. Here you have all four. Lower Castle placed firmly on the surface, below this one the game's biggest non-depths cave, and all of the layers of the castle have the new horror planes. Then later on in the game you have the upper sky, though in truth still surface section, and the lengthy and terrifying depths underneath the kingdom's former seat of power. Is Hyrule Castle then a real dungeon? Yes, since this time you go for an entire linear main questline, namely the turning point set up in the sky section by imposter Zelda, battling powerful enemies in the Watchtower, library, Zelda's room, and more to witness Ganondorf's projection drop the facade, and with it, Phantom Ganon, upon which defeat we receive a heart container, proof that this is a proper dungeon this time. I love this section culminating with the restored Sanctum, as it screams classic Hyrule Castle, and is the most traditional medieval European Zelda section we get in all of Tears of the Kingdom. Well, that, and the Gloomspawn horror you face if you don't climb to claim the Hylian shield. Alright, you have Phantom Ganon potentially there as well, and in fact also in the depths, so all layers of the castle have a boss with a title above its head. The brilliance of Tears of the Kingdom's Hyrule Castle is that it is with us throughout the entire game, from the best opening in the series, then after the Great Sky Island section are sent to the surface sections of it by Lookout Landing's Purah. In a sequel of combinations, Hyrule Castle is the ultimate combination, as after our first trip here, we return for the turning point where we are saved by our fellow sages, witness one of the game's most badass cutscenes, and realize that there's more to this dungeon. Namely, the massive depths below with our missing Lionel, another Gloomspawn, all leading for the greatest variety of enemies in any dungeon to where it all started, namely Ganondorf. In fact, this Heart of Hyrule nearly became my #1 dungeon in Tears, but it lacks the classic Dark Knots or Iron Knuckles to get there for me, along with the fun factor that the Fire Temple offers. Where do I even begin? This temple had a really hard job to outshine Pimpunobo, the minecart ride up to the top of Lava-Free Death Mountain, air battle against Miragia, and the walk and ride to the entrance. And still, it did it. It is the best fire temple in the series, better than Twilight Princess Goron Mines, with a spectacular setting in the former Goron capital Gorondia in the depths. In other words, the lore is in check. A lengthy full dungeon size? Yes, since it has 5 gongs that have to be hit to drop the padlocks, and they are spread out across 5 floors. Not only that, all of this is held together by a storyline of the imposter Zelda, which is actually really good as she meant a lot to Yunobo following the upheaval. His charging power is awesome, both in the minecarts but also to launch him off dry magma platforms we Ultra Hand together. This is without a shadow of a doubt the most creative and most exciting temple and dungeon in the game, and dare I say, one of the best in this series. You have Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom like minecart battles against soldier constructs, plenty of other fun to use minecarts and tracks, building your further path by combining Zonai hydrants and Ultra Hand to build platforms, using recoil and ascent to reach higher untraditionally, or even using a rocket shield or Ultra-handed Zonai hoverbike to cheese through the temple in no time. There's just unprecedented freedom in the Fire Temple, as it is the definition of dungeon non-linearity depending on how you use the Triforce of this game. Power of your imagination, wisdom to think outside the box, and the courage to be creative. I love this approach and how different each playthrough of this dungeon can be. Unlike the Water Temple, it fits its title and theme perfectly. and unlike the Construct Factory and Spirit Temple, it is where it belongs, namely the glowing hot depths underneath Death Mountain. A temple that can be linear, but rewards preparation, whether that is battery upgrades or ultra-hunting vehicles, and coming up with creative solutions. I simply love the Fire Temple from start to finish, including the boss fight against Marbled Goma, another part of the dungeon, which, like the rest of it, can be defeated in a number of different ways. Truly, the den of creativity. And there you have it, Tears of the Kingdom's dungeons from worst to best. But what is your worst to best dungeon list for this game? So 6-1. Share it in the comment section down below. If you haven't already, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press the notification bell, as more Tears of the Kingdom and Zelda lists are on the way. A big thanks to you who watched until the end, and to our patreon.com/comearound patrons, and in particular to our royal producer Charles Shash. You all rock, and please enjoy one or both of these two awesome videos.